Jeremiah 1 and 5. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I adorned thee a prophet unto the nations. I'd like to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakha Kodash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace, blessing, and safety to all the hopeful elect out there, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. This is the brother Abadia from the GMS Toronto camp coming back at you with another one. And I was just meditating, just thinking about today, how, I would have never thought, growing up, in my teens, in my early 20s, and into my my 20s into my late 20s, that I would be doing the work of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. We all had desires, we all had goals that we're trying to accomplish here, and the Lord has called us, for something much greater. We wanted to be, wanted to make the most money, or have the most women, or be athletes, entertainers. you know each of us has our own story about the things that we wanted to be, the things that we desire to be here. And and I never would have thought growing up that my life would revolve around the word of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Yahweh being the Father, and Yahweh Shai being the Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. I grew up in a Christian home, went to church, quite often, but that was just a 1 day a week thing. 1 day a week, Sunday morning, sometimes Sunday evening. I'd also go to like youth camps during the week, youth Bible studies, which I hated back then. I absolutely hated going to these things. I just because I just always felt out of place. I felt like I felt like I didn't belong. You know, um, I rather be home playing ball, or playing games. But the Lord has chosen his prophets from the very get, from the beginning of time. The elect. You know, and that's what we're striving to be right now. You know, and each of us, and many some of us came into the shoot very young, some of us middle age, some of us older. But at the end of the day, we're all striving to be of the elect of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. And we do the work, and we feel good when we do the work. And we feel good when we glorify the name of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. When we press that record button, when we upload our videos, when we're watching the videos, when we're out there on the highways and hedge, highways and byways, prophesying about the downfall of this wicked kingdom in the soon return of our Savior Yahweh Shai. You know, this is this is what brings joy to us. You know, and yeah, I was just meditating on that today, thinking, wow, you know, we all know, each brother, knows how they were, prior to coming into this truth, you know, and what our priorities are, what our priorities were, and now our priority is to do this work. Now our priority is to hopefully obtain salvation. You know, Matthew 22:14, many are called, but few are chosen. Yeah, a lot of people were called to this ministry. You know, we see people come and go. We hear about the stories of men of old and and current who the Lord called into this thing. But, you know, ultimately, may not be were not chosen because they either, went back into the world, you know, or or went back to Christianity, or denounced the name of the Father and the Son, Yahweh and Yahweh Shai. So, even though we know that, we were called to do this work, we know that's not the end. We know that's not the end game. Being called is only half of it. But to be chosen into the enduring the end, into endure unto the end, that's everything. So, it's just amazing, and it's people, people look at us differently, because of what we believe in, because of what we're involved in, you know, why we don't do the things of this world. We don't do that is because we fear the Lord. We understand that we have a duty to do. You know, even me today, was had a busy morning, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to press the record button. Wasn't too sure if I was gonna get around to it because I just there was a lot going on, and just the Lord just you know I wanted to go into this. I was meditating on this topic, I think, like late last night or earlier in the day, and I totally forgot. And in the the past hour, it just popped right back. I was actually listening to one of the I was actually listening to a video of one of the brothers, and yeah, and then I was just like, I gotta go, do the work, because that's what it's all about. That's what brings us joy. And this is being called to this truth, is a blessing, and to be chosen is even more of a blessing. So yeah, it's just great, and and just like the prophets of old and the prophets of now, we were called, you know in different times, time you know uh times in our lives. Some of us are called into this thing young. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. We all remember that day when the Lord enlightened us with His truth. You can never forget that day. You can never forget it. This is Matthew 10:5 in the NLT. Yahweh Shai sent out the 12 apostles with these instructions: don't go to the Gentiles or the Samaritans, but only to the people of Israel. Yahweh's lost sheep. Go and announce to them that the kingdom of heaven is near. Heal the sick, rise the dead, cure those with leprosy, and cast out demons. Give as freely as you have received. You know? And that's what we're doing. You know, that's what we're called to do. You know, warn our people, warn Jake, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and natives, you know, about your true power, about your true heritage. You know, to put away those bywords. You know, come back and serve Yahweh Shem Yahushai before it's too late. Repent now. You know, turn away from that old man or woman and follow after the Lord. You know, because things are going to heat up. Times are going to get scary. You know, we not the men's, you know, the prophets, you know, the men's videos that you come across, you know, here in Great Millstone. You know, we never thought we didn't go to the school to teach the word. You know, we didn't. You know, back in the day when you're young and they ask you, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? We didn't write down we wanted to be prophets, teachers. We didn't have that in our mind. You know, I mean, if you did, more to you. You know, but I know I had no idea that my life would be so wrapped up around this word, around the Bible, around this book, and that it would completely change who I am. You know? And it's like once you put your hand to the plow, you gotta keep pushing. There's no turning back. You know? The prophets of old didn't do that. You know? The great mighty men that you hear about in this book, this beautiful book, they carried out what they were destined to do. And we must believe that we are destined to do that same thing. Lord willing, we make it and endure until the very end. And that's to push and glorify the name of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. And warn our people. And that's what we're doing. Daily. Hundreds of videos are going out. Because that famine of the word, it's not too far away. The videos are getting harder to find. The what you can say, you know, the free speech is tightening up. You know? And you know, the Lord sent his prophets. You know? His true men. Because there's a you know, there's a lot of false prophets out there. But if the Spirit, you know, if the Lord is dealing with you, he will guide you to the men, to the apostles of Great Millstone and the men on down. He will guide you there. And your spirit will be fed. You know? And you'll change. You'll never be the same. You know? If that's your lot. You know, this thing is no joke. It says Matthew 4:8, or 4:18 in the NLT. One day, as Yahushua was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, also called Peter, and Andrew throwing a net into the water, for they fished for a living. So a lot of us, you know, we're doing many other things prior to coming into this truth. You know? Or depending on where you were. You know, you know, whether you saw the prophets on the highways and hedges, whether you came across the videos, all we all came from all different walks of life, you know, and that's how the Lord finds his prophets. It's through many walks of life. It's not in them high end colleges, high end schools. Nothing wrong if you went if you're a very educated man and you went to those great schools and whatnot. But most of us, that wasn't the case. A lot of us never went to college. Some of us never graduated high school. But the point is that the Lord, Yahweh Shem Shai, drew us out of many different walks of life. Just like what he did with Peter and Andrew, because they were fishermen. Yahweh Shai called out to them, "Come follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people." Then they left their nets at once and followed him. A little further up the shore, he saw two brothers, James and John, sitting in a boat with their father, Zebedee, repairing their nets, and he called them to come too. They immediately followed him, leaving the boat and their father behind. And that's what it is. When you get called to this truth, we left our desires of the world behind for something much more greater, to follow Yahweh Shai. We made that choice, and it wasn't something that we second guessed. It's like when that's if you're the elect, because like a lot of people get called into this thing, but they're not chosen. But if you're of the elect, when you are called to this thing, there's no looking back. It's full steam ahead. And we understand, and we realize how precious it was to even be called to do the work of the Lord, because we see a lot of people out there, a lot of our family members, our friends of the world, they're not involved in this thing. They got their mind wrapped up in other stuff. Me personally, I didn't come across the apostles' videos on YouTube. I was on a spiritual journey trying to find the truth, and I came across other Israelite groups, but it never their appearance, the flashiness, the spike bracelets and the spike armbands, the matching attire and garments. When I seen that, I was turned off. Went back into the world. I didn't even take the time to even hear what was being taught to me. If I'm being honest, just the appearance alone I didn't give it the time of the day. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't my time. But I ended up I work in the construction industry, and sometimes you get moved around, and this one day I got moved to a site that I never been on, and there's a man there, and I don't even know if this guy is even in the truth or whatnot, but he showed me the apostles' videos. He spoke a little bit about Yahweh Shai, and and I never looked back, man. And all praise to Yahweh Shem Shai for that. Then it was my time. And then when I saw, the apostles and the many brothers scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, when I was watching their videos, you know, yeah, I didn't see matching garments. I seen men that looked just like me, you know, humble, you know, and coming, with integrity and humility and prophesying about the word of Yahweh Shem Shai, you know. So the same things that happened before then happen now. The way we were called into this truth, into this ministry. This is Amos 7:14. Then answered Amos and said to Amaziah, I was no prophet, neither was I a prophet's son, but I was a herdman and gatherer of sycamore fruit. And the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushai took me as I followed the flock. And the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushai said unto me, Go prophesy unto my people Israel. That's what we did. We heard the word. We got the command, and we did the work. And even me, when I, got it, started following the men of great, the apostles of Great Millstone and the men on down, watching their videos. I wasn't in no camp. Once I finally found the GMS Toronto camp and went down there to see the brothers, and kept going back and going back and going back, I had no confidence even in myself to do videos. I just always saw myself as just being, someone that kind of just, I always saw myself as someone from the outside looking in. Like I looked up to the brothers and amazed at the way they brought the word out, the precepts, they did their videos. I always, I wanted to be like them and do the work like them, but I had lacked that confidence because I thought, I just wasn't good enough. I had that doubt demon on me, and it was the elder Malak in our camp. He pulled me aside and he basically told me, after I wasn't even in the camp yet. This is just after months of me coming and standing on the sidelines. He told me, I gotta do my videos. I gotta do the work. And he gave me the confidence that I thought I never had. And that's why that's also why the brotherhood is so important, man. It's so important. Like sometimes brothers don't even know how much we feed off of each other, how much we inspire each other, with the words that we say, with our videos, and yeah, he really, through the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, he instilled that confidence in me to hit the record button, and I never look back since, and I pray that the Lord never takes his Ruach HaKodesh away from me, and I continue to do this work as long as the Lord enables me to do so, right up until his return, Lord willing, because that's the goal. Jeremiah 20:9. Then I said, I will not make mention of him, nor speak any more in his name, but his word was in mine heart as a burning fire, shut up in my bones, and it was weary and forbearing, and I could not stay. And that's how we feel like with the word of the Lord, especially when if a day or two go by and you don't do a video, it's like you got to get it out, and until you get it out, you don't feel any better. And that's how I feel. You know, you just want to let it. You just want to get it out there, put it out there in the airwaves. You know, to show the Lord that you're His servant. You know, and that you're a firm believer. You can't hold this in you. The word has to go out, has to be pushed forth. This is Jeremiah 28:7. Nevertheless, hear thou now this word that I speak in thine ears, in the ears of all the people. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms of war and evil and of pestilence. And the prophet which prophesied of peace, when the word of the prophet shall come to pass, then shall the prophet be known that the Lord, Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, hath truly sent him. And that's what we're doing now. Our forefathers prophesied against many kingdoms, and here we are today doing the same thing, prophesying against this wicked system, ran by Esau, prophesying against Babylon the Great, which is America, you know, and warning our people about, that MOTB system that is gonna be pressed on the whole world, and teaching our people about repentance and following after Yahweh Hashem Yahushai and believing in Him, because He's getting ready to return soon, And when these things begin to happen, the things are already happening, but once things really start to ramp up, when that MOTB is front page news, when there's massive catastrophic destruction that plays out through this whole earth, then they're going to know that a prophet was among them. When they start to see the Lord providing His miracles for His elect in miraculous type of ways, things that we can't even imagine, then they're going to know that a prophet was among them. When they see us going to those chariots, Lord willing, while the ICBMs are dropping on the earth, then they're gonna know that a prophet was among them. Then they're gonna know what we were saying through the Spirit of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai was nothing but truth and power. But the point is, the point is that we never thought that we'd be called to this truth, but Lord willing, we are chosen and make it to the end. So that's gonna do it for this video. I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Rakak Wadash, and double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well, and peace, blessing, and safety to all the sincere Akim out there pushing His truth throughout the four corners of the earth. Lord willing, this was edifying, and until the next one, Shalom.